Chapter 1, Section 8, Consequences of Limiting Power. The main objective of the twin principles of separation of powers and checks and balances is to limit the power of the national government and force separate branches to share power. Some of the most important checks and balances include: the President, as leader of the executive branch, has the power to check the legislative branch by vetoing laws that Congress passes. If the President vetoes a law, Congress may check the veto by overriding the veto through a 2/3 vote in each House of Congress. Congress may investigate the executive branch and has the authority to impeach and remove federal officials from office, including the President. The President appoints all federal court judges, who must be approved by the Senate. Congress must approve presidential appointments that the President makes, and the Senate must approve treaties that the President signs. The judicial branch may check both the legislative and executive branches by declaring laws unconstitutional. Also, justices that sit on the Supreme Court serve lifetime appointments, isolating them from any political pressure exerted by the President or Congress. If the President wants to gain favorable consideration for certain legislative proposals, he or she must make a special effort to cultivate the relationship between members of Congress and make them aware of his or her legislative priorities. If Congress tries to pass legislation that the President does not favor, he or she may threaten to veto the legislation. Through a veto threat, the President can persuade legislators to adjust the content of the bill to be more acceptable to the President. Congress, however, can then override a veto by passing the legislation by a 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate. Another important congressional power is the ability to investigate and oversee the executive branch and its agencies, such as the Department of Education and the Department of Agriculture. As part of this responsibility, which is known as oversight, Congress summons senior government officials for questioning and information gathering. Moreover, Congress has been given some control over executive appointments, which must be filled with the advice and consent of the Senate. Both of these have the effect of checking the power of the President and holding the executive branch members accountable. In order to insulate judges from political influence, they are given lifetime appointments. However, judges could still be subject to political influence exerted by Congress and other public officials. Although the President has the right to appoint the judges, the Senate must vote to approve the appointments. The judicial branch's main powers over the President are judicial interpretation and judicial review. Judicial interpretation is the power to determine the validity and meaning of executive agency regulations. Judicial review is the judiciary's power to review government actions to determine if they violate the Constitution. One result of the separation of powers and checks and balances system is that interest groups, influential politicians, and others have multiple access points to the government. For example, an interest group that is concerned with environmental protection may seek support from members of Congress, from public officials in the executive branch, or even from the judicial system. Therefore, citizens groups, and interest groups, etc. have multiple government access points. Impeachment. As a result of the checks and balances system, one of the most important legislative powers over the executive is that Congress can impeach and remove the President. The Constitution gives the House of Representatives the sole power to impeach a government official, and it makes the Senate the sole court for impeachment trials. The House of Representatives brings impeachment charges against federal officials as part of its oversight and investigatory duties. Members of the House can introduce impeachment charges and then pass a resolution authorizing an inquiry. The House's Judiciary Committee has jurisdiction over impeachments and can decide whether to pursue articles of impeachment against the accused official and report the articles to the full House. If the articles are adopted by a majority vote, the House appoints members to prosecute the subsequent trial, which takes place in the Senate. A conviction on an article of impeachment requires a 2/3 vote of the senators present. If the official is convicted on one or more of the articles, he or she is officially removed from office. The House has initiated impeachment proceedings more than 60 times, but only about a third have led to full impeachments. Only 8, who are all federal judges, were convicted and removed from office by the Senate. Only 2 presidents, Andrew Johnson in 1868 and Bill Clinton in 1998 have been impeached.